All right, welcome to the Sae Bae cast number 147 with Crumb and Mason breeding. Crumb and Mason, how you guys both doing today?
Pretty good. Glad to be here.
I'm great. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, so Mason, this is your second time on the cast. I think I had you on summer of 2022, if I'm not mistaken. And
Yeah.
Crumb, this is your first appearance. I've actually just so I've heard you as a creator before, a RuneScape creator, but I had never been subscribed. I probably had watched a couple videos here and there that just got recommended, but I didn't really know who you were. So I'm excited to talk and kind of hear your whole journey of OSRS creation. And then Mason, as some of you know, and in the description as well, Mason is the CEO of Crusader Talent, who I think you guys, correct me if I'm wrong, you are over 50 big OSRS creators in regards to like sponsorships and other things like that, right?
Yeah. We represent over 50 old school RuneScape creators across YouTube and Twitch. And I think since I've been on the cast last, we've expanded into other titles as well. So we represent one of the biggest Roblox YouTubers in the world, Think Noodles, and quite a few others in other categories.
Awesome. And also, I gotta say, in Las Vegas, you guys did host a Crusader talent party up in the Bellagio, which was amazing. That was really cool. A lot of fun. I got to meet a lot of creators for the first time. So
Yeah, you were there, right?
yeah.
Dude, I was there too, and I think you're the only person that night that I didn't get a chance to talk to, and that would have been like my face has never been revealed before on the internet, so you would have got the exclusive face reveal along with everybody else, but yeah, we just somehow missed each other.
Maybe okay, well, I had to have seen you, but we probably didn't get introduced then. That might have been the case, right?
Yeah, definitely. I
Okay.
know I saw you and recognized you
Okay.
at the very least.
Yeah,
Interesting.
shame on me. That makes me a bad host. I was DJing as well. I picked that up as a hobby. So I DJed something like the first couple hours of the party, and then of course I mingled and did my best to connect a lot of the gamers who have, I don't know, been friends for years that have never actually had the opportunity to get together. The last RuneFest was in, I think, October of 2019. So there was creators that even I hadn't met in person that I represented for 3 or 4 years. That was the first chance I got to meet everyone. It was awesome. It was good to meet you as well.
Yeah, that is so cool. Like it's just a cool thing to actually meet people in person as well, even just as a creator, not as like a business partner or anything, but just being able to see people in the flesh and realize like, wow, like this is I don't know, like one of the best things about having a meetup like that is that you all have a commonality. So it's instantly like, oh, okay, we all kind of like play RuneScape. We all like make content and I don't know, there's just like that instant connection as well, which is awesome. And you did mention that you picked up DJing. I don't believe you were DJing in the previous cast, so that must be relatively new, unless you were, but it was at the beginning
Yeah.
stages. So how's that
Yeah,
been?
no, it's new. It's just a hobby, and I love it. I picked it up a couple of months ago because, well, I work a lot. I work a ton. I got Crusader Talent. We have a new division that we opened up called Affinity Media Group, and we can get into that later. But I've also picked up a lot of responsibility with CreatorCrafted, which I'm sure we'll talk about later in the podcast as well. And so, I needed a kind of like a creative outlet to just spend my time doing things other than working. And I've always loved music, and I love live performances. And I listen to a lot of music on Spotify, but also music on SoundCloud. That's my favorite to hear music mixed together. So I figured that I'd give it a shot, and I turned out to be decent at it, like out of the gate, which I was surprised by because I have no music background at all, and I've actually attributed a lot of it, like my development, to RuneScape. Because if you think about it, I'm a PKer, and it's all tempo and rhythm. I mean that's all it is. Well, maybe a couple extra things mixed in, but so is DJing. It's really not that complicated on a technical level when once you have someone who can explain it to you, which I took a couple classes on it. And so yeah, I picked it up. It's going well. It's just something that I do to fill my own time.
That's awesome. I remember, I was listening to the Based After Dark podcast a couple weeks ago, and Hamzy was talking about his DJing experience. And I know, like, Bodhi has done some DJ streams, Ari Slash as well, in the OSRS category has done some DJ streams. And all of them say, like, because for me, I look at DJing, I'm like, I don't know what the hell's going on. There's too many knobs, too many, like, things going on. But apparently everyone that gets into it says, no, it's actually, like, relatively simple, but you can, like, the entry level is very low, but the ceiling can be pretty crazy. Like, you can just get better and better and better over the years. So
I don't believe them. I don't
really,
believe them at all. I don't believe Mason when he says it's easy, or anybody else. He tried to show me the ropes. He tried to say it's similar to, doing ticking on RuneScape, and it's damn hard. I don't have a musical bone in my body, and there's no chance I'll ever try to pick it up.
well, that's definitely got to be it. It's that musical bone you got to already have.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. I DJ'd like a private event when we were at our leadership summit for CreatorCrafted in Florida, and I tried to get Jacob behind the decks and tried to explain it to him, but he kept insisting that it was more complicated than maybe I'm a bad teacher because it's not that hard. Maybe next time we're in the same room with someone like Bodhi, he could explain it much better than I can. And then next time you're on the cast, Jacob, you'll have picked up DJing too.
To be fair, when you were showing me, I was just being a little shit the entire time, trying to be funny, making comments on everything you were doing, and not actually paying attention.
Well, yeah, that makes a lot more sense, though.
That's awesome. Okay, so let's get a little bit of a history with you, Crumb. So I believe you started YouTube years and years ago, but I want to hear kind of like the whole story of how you got into content creation and what your journey's been and what you're up to now.
Oh God. Well, I mean, I was just a nerdy kid. I really like to play RuneScape, and I got involved in the skiller community. We're talking like 2009, so I was playing as a level 3, but training all the other skills. And people would do these skiller progress videos, like weekly, sometimes monthly, and show off what they had accomplished and talk about their goals. And so I started doing that. And in the beginning, like, I was like 10, 11 years old uploading these. I didn't even have a microphone, so I was just typing in game. I couldn't spell at all, and they were, just I'm glad that channel's now unfortunately been lost. I kind of wish I had access to it so I could look back for memories, but at one point I privated all the videos, but they would have been super embarrassing. And eventually I got a mic, and I was a little squeaker, and I was doing those progress videos, and that's how I got into YouTube. And then when Evolution of Combat came around, like most people, I ended up quitting the game. It just wasn't fun for me anymore. And when RuneScape, like old school RuneScape, was released, I got back into it. But something felt like it was missing, because back in the day when I was doing these skiller progress videos and making YouTube content, I felt like, people within that community, I wasn't popular, really. I maybe had a couple hundred subscribers, but people recognized me and they watched my stuff. And it was just like much more engaging to kind of be involved in the content creation side of things for me. And so I wanted the same experience with old school, but I wasn't a skiller anymore. And so like I didn't have that super niche community to do content in and get recognized in immediately. And so I just kind of started doing quest guides and like holiday event guides. And that's how I got my start on YouTube again in old school. And then it turned into a bit of a money thing. I quit doing YouTube videos for a while, but I noticed in my AdSense account I had made $50. And like, I think I'm in like grade 9 at this time or something, right? And the payout on YouTube is $100. And I had no money to my name. So I was like salivating over the potential of getting that $100. And so I started uploading all these RuneScape quest guides. And like 3 months later, I hit that threshold. And dude, I think I bought myself a large pepperoni pizza from Domino's. I had it delivered to the house. Like I was living like a king for that week with that $100. But then, I needed more. And so I uploaded a few hundred quest guides. I was trying to do every quest in the game at the time, and eventually I set my sights on bigger horizons, and I noticed that I was looking at videos that would hit the algorithm instead of being videos that people would search for to try and get, bigger views. And I took a look at what type of Minecraft content was doing well. And I saw there was this video called like top 10 things only old Minecraft players will remember. And so I did that video, but for RuneScape, and it like blew up for me. It got like 100,000 views within the first couple of days. And I was over the moon. And so I turned that into like an 8-part series. And ever since then, I've kind of been trying to do content that will hit the algorithm and instead of things that people search for.
Very cool. That's I think that really is the start to so many content creators' journeys is like messing around, having absolutely no clue what you're doing. And then for the people that really stick around and make it become like a lucrative thing, it's you all of a sudden see a little bit of money and you're like, wow, I am literally just playing video games and uploading stuff and something's happening. So
Yeah, and so
yeah, go for it.
from there, I kind of turned my channel into covering RuneScape abuse. So people that bot on the game and people that like scam or do hacking attacks. And
Was
so I,
was that because like you would see like you knew that that would hit the algorithm different, or what made you kind of transition into that, or was it just
dude,
out of your own
I'll,
curiosity?
I'll tell you what happened. I decided kind of midway through this old things people will remember series that I wanted to do like a top 10 RuneScape bugs throughout history. And after I posted that video, I got contacted by this person, Zeb, the Plague Doctor, who was part of a RuneScape abuse group called Hex Unit that you might remember. It was quite famous pre EOC. And we did an interview together. And that video got like so many views. I think like 500,000 or something within a couple weeks. And so that kind of kicked me off on this whole like RuneScape abuse path where I would interview people who were doing these like underground things in RuneScape. And I was also partly influenced by the success of Silent Core's RuneScape Underground series that he had done pre EOC. And so, yeah, I spent the next, God, maybe 3 years covering a ton of topics in that space as they relate to RuneScape.
And I browsed your YouTube. It looks like a lot of those just did very, very well. Was that like the main growth of your channel at that time, like those few years of doing that kind of style?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. My channel went from like I built my whole channel basically around that content nearly entirely.
So, do you have like what are the videos? Because at least on my channel, I do have like a selection. It's mainly the casts that I do where like a year after I've published it, all of a sudden it'll hit the algorithm. Have you ever had videos like that where you'll look back and you're like, wow, there's a huge spike now? And is there like a correlation to those topics that you saw?
For my RuneScape videos, I haven't had any of them take off really after the fact. It's always been within the same month that they're uploaded. They either are a rocket ship or they just kind of fizzle out. There's a few of the big ones that, of course, get like a pretty steady trickle of flow views every month that come in. But some of my newer content, since I've been expanding outside of RuneScape, I have seen that actually. Some of them have taken off like literally months after I posted them. And we can go into that now, or we can talk about it later. But I think it's because of audience profiles on YouTube and making that switch that it took a long time for them to hit the algorithm.
Yeah, so I actually do want to talk about it now, and I actually have a couple questions just in regards to that. So one of the fears that a lot of people have, I obviously see it in the RuneScape section because that's my game that I follow, but it must happen in every sort of game category where you're known for a certain game and then transitioning out of that. There's a lot of fear attached probably of like, okay, maybe this will fail. Maybe I'll have to go back. But there is that kind of sense of adventure of like doing something new and the potential reward of doing something new. So how was that decision made for you to kind of transition from the old school videos into now what you're doing? And you can talk about what you're doing right now.
Yeah, so this is a big topic, and I'll tell you right off the hop, I was scared shitless. So to give you a little background, I was I went to school to be a software developer, and I was working full time as a software developer up until 2020. And when COVID hit, they laid off half of the company. And like, look, I loved programming as a kid growing up. It was one of my childhood interests, and I was really goddamn good at it. But it turns out I hate it as a job, and I haven't touched it in any significant way since getting let go in 2020 because it kind of spoiled it for me to do it as formal employment. And so when I got laid off, I had enough money to have a 3 month window to either make YouTube work or I was going back to the corporate world. And we had a few months earlier kind of launched the RuneScape figures, and we were doing them through 3D printing. And so combined with being able to do these figurines full time and going into YouTube full time, I thought that I would have a chance of being able to, pay rent through all of this. And so it worked out. I haven't had a real job since, but I made this transition out of RuneScape YouTube content just over a year ago now. And it was super risky because like this is my whole livelihood. And if I mess it up, then I'm going back to a real job. So the stakes were high. But also, I never found a lot of people in the RuneScape YouTube community find a format that they're able to do, on a weekly or monthly basis, and they're kind of able to upload the same video over and over again, and it keeps getting views. Maybe it's PKing, maybe it's Sir Pugger where he does the bot busting stuff. I never found a format like that for my RuneScape stuff. I was always trying to find the next sensational story, and I really felt like that I had covered everything I wanted to cover, and it was either time to go back and start repeating stories or like really try to find something new. And I experimented with a few new RuneScape series. I was going to do one where I kind of go into all the different like ways that people play the game, like Tile Man or Level 3 Skiller, and like interview people in those communities and like cover all the creative ways that people play the game. But my early test videos of that series just didn't do well. They were, way below my average viewership. And so like, my RuneScape YouTube journey, like my channel was kind of dying. It felt like, at the same time, I had this, I've always had this interest in cybersecurity coming from a programming background. And it's, partly the reason why I cover RuneScape hacks and scams, because I've always been interested in this stuff. And there's all these like really, really big stories in the real world where people are stealing millions of dollars, usually in crypto, or they're breaking into big companies like Twitter and Microsoft. And so I thought there might be an opportunity to kind of move away from RuneScape scams and talk about real world scams. And so I took a risk as like, you know what, I'm gonna make this video on Graham Ivan Clark, the teenager who had hacked Twitter and posted a Bitcoin doubling scam. I'm going to take a risk and post that video because there's a bit of a RuneScape tie-in where it was a doubling scam. I think my RuneScape viewers will relate to that. And I posted it and it did horrible. It was my like 10 out of 10 on uploads. In terms like on YouTube Studio, a 10 out of 10 is your worst performing upload out of your last 10 uploads. And it sat at like 10, 15,000 views for months. And I went back to doing RuneScape content. And then all of a sudden it took off and hit the algorithm and now it's at 3.1 million views.
Holy.
Yeah, it's like, holy crap, 3.1 million views. Like we're talking about as many views as I've gotten uploading RuneScape content together over the last like 2 years in one video. Wow. And I spent a lot of time on that video. It was a hell of a lot more work, but it wasn't as much work as uploading 50 RuneScape videos.
And it probably feels a lot better knowing you can do one project and hit the numbers like that. Wow.
Yeah, it does. And I've always been a really slow uploader because I'm always super meticulous about my research and I want things to be factual. And if you look at my scripts, like they're actually, I cite them and I put a lot of research into them. And so even my RuneScape videos were big productions and I was slow uploading them. Sometimes, I tried for monthly, but often it would be every other month that I would upload a video. And so if I'm going to spend a ton of time on a video, like it has to do well for it to be worth it. Otherwise, it's like, damn, I've kind of worked for free for the last 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
But now, yeah, sorry, go ahead, Mason.
yeah, Jacob, we just glossed over the fact that you got 3.1 million views on a video. Like I want people listening to try to put that in perspective. Like that's a massive, massive number and something you should be really proud of. You know, to put it in scale, that's like the entire population of major cities like Chicago and Toronto that have watched that video of yours, and that's I shouldn't say unprecedented because there have been a few creators in the RuneScape category that have achieved that level of virality, but you you did so. I wouldn't say quickly because the video didn't start out as a massive success, but relatively quickly and relatively massively compared to what your viewership was like on all of your other content.
Yeah, dude, it still boggles my mind. Seriously.
So were you
And
thinking that this was maybe just a lucky chance that had kind of happened, or did you notice something deeper that like,
yeah,
okay, this will
no,
continue?
something happened actually that made that happen. So YouTube it knows your audience profile, right? It has like your common viewers. You can go into your analytics and see like who watches your video and what videos and what channels your videos get recommended next to. And so the video originally kind of fizzled out because it never got recommended outside of my RuneScape audience profile and people weren't interested in it. But Moist Critical had actually covered this story on Graham Ivan Clark in a series of videos, and he was doing a Twitch live stream where he was just doing a YouTube binge, and somebody recommended the video to him, and he watched it on stream, and that saw a huge peak of traffic. And then after that, Soda Poppin watched it on stream, and then XQC watched it on stream. And so a bunch of people like went to the video because they wanted to watch it on their own. And then the audience profile on that video in specific changed and started getting recommended next to people like Sunny V2 and God, I can't think of their names, but all these other people that do like similar real life hacking style content. And that's when it blew up in a big way. But then I was at this crossroads where it's like now my audience profile on YouTube is changing. And after it blew up, I had uploaded a couple RuneScape videos, and oh no, I'm having the same problem that I'm having with this Graham Ivan Clark video, in that they're not hitting the right RuneScape audience profile anymore, and they're super slow out of the gate. And those eventually found their way back into the right channels, like right promotional, like right audience profile, and they ended up doing well. But I knew if I continue to do these hacker videos, I'm going to basically completely ruin my channel in terms of being able to upload RuneScape content if any more of them do well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was really torn if I want to go down that path because, well, look, I had this like little figures side hustle built around my channel, and I was pretty well exclusively advertising on my channel. I wasn't having, there was no other partners that were advertising them. And so, like, if I made this transition, it kind of seemed like maybe that would go away. And I would never be able to really go back to RuneScape content, especially where it's getting so many subscribers from that video that did really well. Like, they're not interested in RuneScape. There's no going back. And Mason, who's God, I know his name every other day. The guy that does hunting, he's in Crusader.
Oh, that does hunting?
Yeah, he's got like a collection.
Pet hunting, you mean?
No,
Pet
no, no.
hunting?
Real life. You've been to his house.
Oh, Nine Rain. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
Nine Rain. Yeah,
Yeah.
I put a message in the Crusader Discord server kind of expressing why I was so torn up about this decision, and Nine Rain gave me some good advice. He said, "Look, man, what do you want to be doing in 3 years? Like, what do you want to be uploading content on?" And again, I was kind of like out of RuneScape content anyways, and so yeah, I made the jump and decided to see if it would work out. And I've uploaded a small series of these videos, and they continue to do well. So I've got my fingers crossed that they'll continue to do well into the future. And with the figures business, I've been able to maintain that to some extent through paid promotions with other YouTubers instead of just advertising them myself. So yeah, that's kind of how I got to where I am now.
Wow, that's cool. And that really is like so important because I don't know, just kind of getting older, at least in the content creation space, it seems like you a lot of people just kind of have the luck of the draw, or really dedicate themselves to content creation. But then at a certain point, you're realizing, like, am I doing this for the rest of my life? Is this what I want to do for the rest of my life? Is just RuneScape stuff, or any other game that they're playing. So that definitely, like, shout out to Nine Rain for that just thought-provoking question, because that really is just so important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
without that, I might have still been doing RuneScape, to be honest.
So do you, this is a question I have just simply because, like, I've seen creators make secondary channels where, they'll keep their RuneScape audience, but now they want to do something else. I know Rendy, a couple years back, wanted to make like an IRL channel, and I've talked to Solo Mission before, where he says, mixing channels and uploading different content can really kind of ruin a channel's, I guess, consistency in views. So so I guess my question is, like, did you consider making a secondary channel to have all these, like, cyber criminal videos and keep your RuneScape, or was it really just like, I want to really focus on cyber criminal and I probably won't go back to RuneScape, so it would be better to just have a larger subscriber base?
Yeah, they're not wrong. There's definitely no going back for me now. I don't think. I think it'd be very hard for me to switch now back to RuneScape. It was a little easier breaking out, and granted, I got quite lucky with that Twitch stream promotion that helped me make the switch. I know it would have been the smart thing to do to make a new channel, but I think it would have been harder to do from the very start. I know, like, Colnello has success. He's gotten millions of views on his secondary channel, Nello. But for me, I just really, like, I was already so strapped for time. It's like I don't wanna restart and try to build another channel from scratch. I'm just gonna put all my eggs in this basket and we'll see if it works or not.
So you've uploaded quite a few videos, at least a handful of different kind of stories of, like, these cyber criminals recently, and they've all seen massive numbers. So is that, like, so what's your plan going forward? Is it really just that, continuing to find these very interesting stories of, these cyber criminals, and, creating the script and everything and making a video, or do you have any other ideas that you're thinking of kind of transitioning into? So
Yeah,
yeah, what are your plans now?
yeah, no, this is it for the time being. I've got a long list of really interesting stories that I want to cover, and oftentimes these are big productions. Like 2 months ago, I uploaded a video on the Mount Gox hack saga, and it was like a 20,000 word script. I mean, truly a short story, and all well researched and cited. I mean, these are stories about real people, and oftentimes they involve the law, and so I've got a duty to be factual when I upload these, and tell the truth of the stories. And so they take a really long time to write. On top of that, um, they're usually well covered already, but just in news stories as they happened. And so I like to view all these news stories as like a first rough draft of history. And then when I decide on a story that I want to cover, I'll go back through and kind of make a timeline of all of the events, and then find like a fitting story arc. More often than not, it's rags to riches to rags. But like in the Mount Gox video, it was overcoming the dragon, where the FBI had a really hard time tracking down this hacker who had stolen billions of dollars in crypto, and for a long time it looked like they would never catch him. And so try to put all these different news pieces together and look at things like the affidavits that came out, and then also try to, like, so I took a lot of I got really good at research from these RuneScape videos, because it's hard to find information about RuneScape. You got to really get into the weeds of Google search results. And so, like, one thing I'll do with these videos that I think is different than anybody else is, like, I'll read every Twitter post that somebody has ever made, and then try to pull some of possibly their motives, or possibly give a little insight into how they arrived at committing their later, much more serious crimes. Like in the case of Graham Ivan Clark, he had this whole YouTube channel where he was, like, hacking on Minecraft and scamming his viewership, and, like, nobody had ever talked about that before in media. And I found, like, all this historical evidence of him from his online profiles, and, like, tied that into the beginning of the video, and kind of showed how that led to him committing this huge hack. Same with Joel Ortiz in my video. It's this kid who was an honor student who went on to SimSwap millions of dollars, went into like all his Twitter posts and his early forum history and all that sort of thing. And so, yeah, to answer your question, I've got a huge list of videos of very similar topics that I want to cover. And the main bottleneck so far has been just script writing for the main part. It takes a heck of a lot of time to do the research and then even longer to craft that story narrative. And so, actually, recently we've been hiring a whole bunch of script writers to try and help out with that process.
Wow. So you're already in the process of like hiring more people. How does that work, I guess, as a creator that I'm assuming you did everything alone and now getting other people to help? Are you kind of intimidated by that whole process?
Well,
Yeah, go for it.
luckily Mason has been kind of whipping me into shape. I've always had a really hard time, yeah, letting go of control over any of that because it's hard to convey how you want things done. And I think you probably relate doing YouTube. Like you build up so many superstitions around what might do well, and just wording certain things it feels like is going to be like more captivating to the audience. And oftentimes it also feels like it's really hard to find good talent to help with this stuff, because if someone's like really good at it, they've probably just got a YouTube channel of their own that they're doing it on. And so luckily, I've got more of a format now than I ever had with these new stories, and it's made providing guidance to uh, people that we're hiring easier now that there's kind of a format that I can share. But it's been very hands-on. I'm still super involved with the process to try to make sure that these videos come out with like the vision that I have for them.
That's fascinating. So I do recall Mason talking about how like sponsorships work, at least in the OSRS scene, where the sponsorship people are trying to find like what your latest uploads have been. So they're not going to make a gamble on what this next video will do, but they're just going to base it on other videos. So with a video like these cyber documentaries, like are you like have you gotten big sponsorships yet, or is that like in the process? Like how are you planning to like really monetize these videos in the future rather than just
I'll
ad
let
revenue?
I'll let Mason answer this, but I do want to make one comment first. You're right. They do look at your past performance, and some of these videos that got big views, they got a hell of a deal on because they were booking me at a RuneScape rate, and they went on to get millions of views.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. So to answer your question plainly, to start is we have more sponsors interested in Crumb's YouTube channel than ever before, and we don't have enough videos to meet the demand. I mean, we have people basically banging down my door to work with him because there's several YouTube channels that cover cyber crimes, but really not that many, and not that many that produce content with his attention to detail as Crumb does, and it makes his endorsement really valuable because he stands by his research and what he says. That confidence, in his storytelling of what's transpired, these cyber crimes, is really compelling. It's very entertaining, and in turn, people find him to be very authentic. And I think that's what people are look for when they choose to engage with a sponsor on YouTube. Is like, is this person just BS me here? They're just reading a script and just getting through it, or is there actual value here that I should listen to because the person who's telling me is authentic. So yeah, we're having a hard time fending off the sponsors, if anything, and we do have a series of big name sponsors who are just waiting for the opportunity to get integrated into a video. So I mean, that's been the main job, on my side, and helping Crumb scale his channel is it's really hard for creatives to let go of the reins on anything. And Crumb's no exception. He's remarkable at what he does. The thing is, it just takes him too long to do it. I mean, it takes several months to make these videos, and that's not a knock on you, Crumb, but there are some tasks that can be delegated to other people, and since I've built businesses of my own and scaled them and hired people, and that requires a whole nother skill set than it does to actually create videos. So it was managing people, recruiting people, negotiating their contracts, and ultimately expecting them to deliver what they have committed to deliver. That managerial aspect is something that Crumb's embraced really well, and I think that in 2024 he's going to have a lot of success in being able to meet the demand of the sponsors. Not that that's the main. It's not the main consideration with making these videos. It's really to provide entertaining content. But ultimately, you still got to make money to be able to pay for all of these people to help make content. So that's where the sponsors come in. So it's a complementary relationship. I think he's done a really good job. And I got to say, I love the old RuneScape content that he used to do as well. I mean, I think one of my favorite videos was an investigation in the RuneScape cyber sex market. I mean, how many videos do you see that cover RuneScape cyber sex market? And how many videos do you see that go inside, that take a deep dive inside of Venezuelans trading online accounts for money? I mean, that's hard to dig up, and it's even harder to get in contact with these people and to be able to create a compelling video out of it. So part of me wishes I could clone Crumb, and one half of him does RuneScape docu series or docu style content, and the other does these bigger cybercrime projects.
So optimally, what is your vision as hiring enough people? Would you want to start producing videos on a weekly basis? Like, is there some sort of time frame that you think would be optimal with your channel once you've hired a bunch of people?
I like to do really big productions, and I like to make a really good story. And there's kind of this trend of YouTube automation that I hate, where channels will they'll get people to write scripts, and they'll just kind of record them without really a care, and then they'll have someone edit them, and there's just not a lot of love put into them. And their only goal is to pump out content as fast as possible, usually at a weekly upload cadence, and I hate that. Right now, for 2024, I really want to upload monthly. I'm not sure if it's going to be possible yet. It might end up being every other month. But I want to maintain quality, and these are stories that I really am fascinated by often myself, and so I like to put a lot of care into them, and I want to make them as good as they possibly can be.
So uploading on a I guess a longer basis, does that help with the video? I'm just curious, where it comes to click-through rate and stuff. Just if you do have a rarer video schedule, does that actually make the video do better in any way at all, or is it literally just dependent on if the audience loves the video or not? I'm just curious if that has any factor to play in it.
Yeah, I think my best videos have always, the ones that get the most views, always have the longest watch time on them. I think at the end of the day, YouTube wants to sell advertisement space, and if they can keep people on the platform as long as possible, that's how they're able to sell the most ads on these videos. And so I go with the Mr. Beast philosophy, where I just want to produce the best, most engaging, most captivating video possible. And I feel like if I spend more time on it, in the end, they'll get exponentially more views than if I just rush something out. That said, some of my best performing videos are ones that I did on a crunch. So maybe that's not so true, but yeah, I just kind of focus on uploading quality over quantity.
Very cool. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this CreatorCrafted that I said before the cast started, has been pretty hot in the OSRS community. It feels like, especially with all the leagues videos coming out, that seems to be the dominating sponsorship that I've seen, as well as Twitch creators kind of advertising for CreatorCrafted. So if you guys want to kind of talk about how that all started and kind of why the idea even sprouted, and how that's been doing. So Mason or Crumb, you guys can start.
Crumb, why don't you take the lead on it and I'll fill in any gaps?
Yeah, I know how it started. So kind of before I went full on into this transition, I wanted to see if it would be feasible to still be profitable. Um, the figure business would still be profitable if it wasn't just me doing the advertisements on my YouTube channel, for free. I don't have to pay anything to do a shout out on my own videos. And so I had partnered up with Flipping Old School before multiple times, but then Flipping signed with Crusader Talent. I think I actually got him on board, right, Mason?
Yeah, something like that. I know you recommended him at one point. I'm also a big fan of the FIM. I've represented him for a couple of years now.
Yeah, and so, anyways, you saw an email come through from me, kind of on the other side of operations as a sponsor for Flipping, and you're like, "Oh, this is interesting to have a creator signed with Crusader trying to book an ad now." And yeah, we ran a few ads last Christmas, and it was still profitable, thankfully. So we're still in business with the figures. And you, Mason, approached me and you said, "Hey, we've got empty ad slots with YouTubers. Would your figure business be able to like pick up any of these?" And I was like, "No, we don't have the budget or even the stock to be able to do that." But the wheels got turning in your head that, hey, maybe we can create some sort of product line that is like fits RuneScape, and it can be a way that we fill some of these empty ad slots for RuneScape YouTubers. And we thought that the LED signs would be a really good fit for that.
Yeah, that's exactly how it went down. And I had always dreamed of having a brand that I could use to sponsor the creators at Crusader and beyond. And for years, I've just been racking my brain on, okay, what exactly should it be? I've thought of seemingly everything. Do we do blue light glasses? Do we do earbuds or other peripherals? And we saw an opportunity with LED signs and now mouse mats, and just did some basic research on, okay, could we bring these to market and do them justice? Is this going to be high enough quality that we want to put our names on it and advocate for? And we went through, I don't even know, countless rounds of sampling from other manufacturers or from various manufacturers, and spent thousands of dollars. Which this is just a side business that we had no idea if it would get any traction. So the investment of anything was a lot to us. We got our own personal cash on the line, so we were really, really thorough, and we found suppliers that were able to to do justice for our brand and ultimately deliver quality products that thankfully the RuneScape community ended up really liking. So instead of these YouTube videos and Twitch ad slots going to waste, people, every time a Crusader creator uploads a video without a sponsor that they would have put a sponsor on, it's like a little part of me dies. It's my job and my team's job to at Crusader to fill those slots and to help our creators monetize their content primarily through sponsorship. So having a brand that we own that allows us to insert these ads into otherwise unused ad slots is perfect. And the creators have found it to be really lucrative as well. Some of our creator partners, which we're at over 30 plus now, this is their most lucrative sponsor. And the great thing about it for them is that it's RuneScape related. So we've found that people skip these ads less than other traditional sponsors. Why? Well, the only real difference between our ads and other traditional sponsors is that it's RuneScape related. That's like the main variable. And so the creators are quite happy with that, and we're able to book for I suppose discounted rates compared relative to what the market prices are, while still keeping it fair for everyone. And it's been this is really all thanks to Jagex and first off their fan IP policy that allows us to produce 100 of each, and then they were generous enough to grant us a license. So we're an officially licensed product line. actually 2 officially licensed product lines with the LED signs and the mouse mat. So and that allows us to sell as many as we want. So we're no longer capped at 100, which all other merch stores that are RuneScape related are handicapped by. There's also other stipulations in that fan IP policy that you can't use print on demand services, and there's a few others without getting into the nitty gritty that make it hard for people to do this sustainably and at scale. And thankfully, due to the team over at Jagex, we've been fortunate in being able to work with them, and they even help us promote things like giveaways, and we're going to have some stuff coming in the pipeline that I think is going to be really exciting over the next couple of months or so with Jagex that of course we wouldn't be able to do without them. So we're really grateful.
How did that all work out, like with getting that permission from Jagex? Did they take any sort of cut from this, or is it really just out of their own kind of generosity to grant you this?
They
so go ahead, Jacob.
They get a royalty on sales, and we're pretty proud of that because not only does a sale support the creator that's advertising it, but also it goes to support the game. And I think we're both pretty proud of that.
That's really cool.
And the structure is sustainable for us too. I mean, they were really fair with it. Yeah, yes, they get a cut of sales, but it's it benefits the game, the studio itself. It benefits the creators, and it benefits us. So and I think it benefits the fan base just at large, to bring products to market that they're purchasing it. I mean, we've sold thousands of products, and we've only been in business since June, so it's pretty remarkable, like how much community support that we've had in these few short months.
Actually, Jagex has been really, really nice to us. Like normally when you talk about licensing intellectual property, like you're going to be spending like in the 6 figures just to do it, and then there's going to be deep revenue splits. And CreatorCrafted is this business that we scrapped together from not very much, and it's amazing just that Jagex would even entertain this idea to begin with.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, to be fair, you guys are very much well, at least Mason being the CEO of Crusader, you are very much in that OSRS space. So I think maybe they recognize you're already supporting a bunch of creators that without them, Jagex wouldn't be doing as well without these like massive creators that are.
I think they saw the value in it. And a large reason because of that, like how much advertising value are they getting out of people that are creating content around the game? Like it can't even be measured, the value there. And also RuneScape YouTube and content creation, I think, is in kind of it's in a tough size for YouTube, because without sponsorships and without these types of like collaborations, usually just the AdSense on its own isn't enough to do full time. And I know when I was doing RuneScape YouTube full time, like a sponsorship was make or break for paying rent for the month. Just because of like the views that RuneScape content gets. And so like it's really, really important to maintain full-time content creation, that people are able to get ads on like every single one of their videos.
Yeah, no pressure for me, right? You just got to literally put food on the table and pay rent if I don't deliver. But yeah, no, jokes aside, it really does help move the needle, and Jagex really did not need to be as generous as they were in working with us. Yeah, and of course, it doesn't help that we manage over 50 other content creators, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they were obliged to do what they did. And the fact that they welcomed us with open arms and issued license is great, and they're continuing to support our growth as an organization, which I can tease a little bit of what that'll look like. But I think you're going to be seeing partnerships down the road with other smaller merchandise stores that would have difficulty obtaining a license and maintaining some of the the technical legal requirements that having an IP agreement with the $1 billion company requires. It's not like anyone can just knock on the door and sign up same day. So I think we're gonna be able to expand our product range, with smaller merch stores that are already in the community and have that presence.
That's really cool. Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, does this extend as well for you guys moving beyond LED signs, and how, like, have you guys thought of any other products? Are you able to leak any? If so,
Yeah, well, we sell desk mats, mouse pads, desk mats, like these big, awesome designs that a very talented artist in the community by the name of Uber designs for us, and we've launched several, 4 or 5 now, several different designs, and have more coming, next quarter. And then, yeah, I don't know how much we want to give away, Jacob, but there's definitely some products that are already popular that we're exploring, experimenting with. That includes apparel, just broadly, and so yeah, those will come. We don't have a license for any of those yet, but like I said, we'll see what the future holds. I imagine we're going to continue to grow into other product categories.
very cool. I want to take a little step back and talk about the, I guess, interesting stories that you had, Crumb, on your YouTube. Just the simple fact of covering these bot farms and other things that you were doing. And I recall you saying you may have gotten some death threats.
Oh my
Um,
God, dude.
yeah, so
It's
I want to hear if there was any particular interesting stories that you'd like to share.
It's nuts. It turns out when you expose someone's scam on RuneScape, oftentimes they think that Jagex is going to take action against whatever it is that they're doing, and so to them it's like, oh my God, this person's ruining my moneymaker, and they're already doing these nefarious activities anyways, so their morals are oftentimes a little questionable, and so what lengths will they take to try to stop me? And it turns out they'll sometimes go quite far. So I did a video on X staking um, in 2017, and people would have, you know, slightly less than maxed out combat stats, and they go to the duel arena and they would ask you to put up like 10% more than whatever the bet was. Well, the combat stats didn't really warrant that much of an increase. And so over time, they would end up profiting from this in a big way. And these X stakers set up bot farms with these accounts that they were paying people to create to have these certain stats. And they were making a ton of money from it. And I got into one of their Discord servers and I interviewed somebody who was doing it. And he sent me pictures of his bot farm and like told me all these insider details. And when that video went live, I think I got more backlash from any of these sketchy communities than I ever had before. Somebody went as far to find out what college I was going to, and they sent an email to the school saying that I was going to bring a bomb there.
Oh my
Um,
God.
yeah, dude, they were finding pictures of my partner and sending that to me on Discord with unsavory messages. Um,
Jesus
dude,
Christ.
luckily for me, I'm in Canada, and I was going there for programming. So the professor who that email trickled down to, like, he was kind of privy to this stuff, and it didn't come from my personal email or anything. So instead of calling in the SWAT team, he just asked me personally, "Hey, what's going on here?" And I let him know the situation. Um,
I
but
want to
yeah,
know, Crumb. I want to know, like, if you recall what his words were. Like, how do you open? Like, hey, are you gonna bring a bob into school today? Like, how exactly did he bring that up to you?
he so it was over the weekend. He forwarded me the email to my like student account and said, like, what is this? What's
What
going
is
on?
this?
Yeah, and
Wow.
I explained, I do YouTube and I piss some people off online, and yeah, they want my head for it.
So, like, having that happen to you, because I mean, in the moment, that stuff can be scary because you're dealing with anonymous lunatics online that you really don't know their seriousness. I've obviously heard of like the stories from Kemp Q, and I believe like even Sir Pugger has kind of had some instances of these kind of threats and stuff. I don't know to that extent, but it seems like a lot of it is purely threat based. Now that seems like it actually did trickle into the actual real world, but I'm just wondering, like, in those moments, do you reconsider what you're doing content wise? Like, do you kind of want to stray away from it? I don't know. So
Yeah,
what were your
dude,
thoughts?
it's an awful thing to do to somebody. My anxiety was through the roof, for sure. Um, but it's like, you know, to when people try to silence whatever it is that you're talking about, oftentimes, and we saw this with like KemQ's video, it has the opposite effect where it brings even more attention to it, especially when you go on to talk about the thing that they did to try to stop you talking about the thing that they don't want you to talk about. And so it, like, you know, these types of threats, more often than not, always had the exact opposite effect of silencing, you know, the thing that they were doing, keeping it out of, like, you know, the public's eye. And so I never let it stop me. That was one of the very first RuneScape abuse videos that I ever did, and I continued to do them for years after. And no one ever attempted to swat me again, and I got a lot more tight about what personal information I share online and what's easily findable. But people have, you know, certainly they to this day they send me very strange and mean messages on Discord or by email or by Twitter, you know, threatening and stuff like this. But yeah, there's not really much that someone I think can do. I mean, I've had people tell me if I ever go to RuneFest, they're gonna stab me and stuff like this. But I'm
Jesus
not.
Christ.
Yeah, dude. But I think there's not a lot of people aren't actually gonna do that.
Yeah,
They're hiding behind a computer. Yeah.
yeah. That I think, but it's hard to know for sure because you're again dealing with weirdos online. So, but most of it, at least what I've heard, is a lot of these guys are keyboard warriors and they'll say whatever they need to.
Yeah,
Go.
you know, exactly. And you know, nothing that you do online is really private. I mean, there's ways that we can find out exactly who these people are who are sending threats that, you know, aren't really credible. But you know, most of them just get ignored and put to the wayside. But you know, we've got the resources to actually track these people down and hold them accountable. And if people think that they can just throw a VPN on and think that they're yeah, and use a burner email, yeah, and think that what they're doing is private and we can't find out, well, that's just, they're mistaken.
With the X staking stuff, one of the people that was harassing me, I found his LinkedIn profile and sent him a screenshot of it, and all of a sudden he did a complete 180 and he was apologizing.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's like you're coming after a guy who investigates cyber crimes. Do you think he doesn't know how to get a hold of people's information? You know, it's like, really, you really want to mess with him?
What's interesting is with these new videos that I'm covering, we're dealing with much more sophisticated threat actors often. And I thought that the response from some of them would be so much worse than the RuneScape stuff because we're not dealing with thousands of dollars anymore. We're literally talking about, at times, tens of millions of dollars being stolen. And I worried that talking about these SIM swapping attacks and talking about things like emergency data recovery through through hacked law enforcement emails or fake subpoena requests, I worried that people that are doing that would be really upset and actually come after me in a big way. But no, they seem to love it. Actually, I think they they like to see it talked about for some reason. Like nobody, like I haven't had such a negative, awful response as I did in the RuneScape community. I don't know why.
I want to ask, just because you had been doing that for years, what is something that you think the OSRS community, a vast majority of us, have no idea what's actually happening underground? Things that maybe you had seen, but you feel like the wider community has no idea about.
Talk about the sex market, the underground sex market.
Mason wants to hear it.
So interesting to me. I can't believe that that's a thing.
I think the worst thing that happens to anybody in like the RuneScape abuse scenes is actually the people who are involved with them themselves. People are very spiteful in the communities that like try to profit off these nefarious activities, and they'll backstab each other, and a lot of them I don't think are in a great sense of life, and so they kind of take things to the extreme that they shouldn't. Like I remember I was working on one story about people who crack RuneScape accounts. It's this hacking method where they look through breached databases. So they'll find your email from some means, and they'll see if it's ever been involved in a breached database from some other website and see if you reuse the same password. And they've like automated this process. And somebody who came to me to talk about this story said that he had pissed off other hackers in this community, and they made fake CSAM material. Do you know what that term means?
No.
Fake child
Oh,
sexual assault
okay.
material. Yeah, and they sent this to his family on Facebook because they had some sort of disagreement within their community. And yeah, so I think that's probably the most like evil, vile thing that happens. It's usually internal to these different groups.
Yikes. Yeah, that's scary. That's some scary shit.
Yeah,
Um,
this dude was yeah. Yeah, dude. Wasn't good. Wasn't good.
I always wonder, like, do you have any sort of idea of how many, what's the percentage of bots that are actively playing right now, like in OSRS? Because I feel like nobody actually really knows. Like, Jagex claims that there's, thousands of bots being banned daily. Or on the weekly basis of just like tens of thousands of bots. Even sometimes they claim hundreds of thousands of bots. Do you have any idea of like what we're dealing with when it comes to bot farms and what we're? Because I feel like including myself, the average player has absolutely no idea how massive of an operation this is.
Yeah, so actually I don't have any numbers besides like what has been publicly stated, but that's like years and years ago. One of the CEOs at the time in 2012, before the bot nuke, said like 50% of the player base was botting or something like this. It was some nuts number, but I do know over the years I've seen what feels like a really big decrease in botting and also the style of botting from talking to botters. Like they can't get away with it long term anymore. And so their botting methods rely on, they call it suicide botting, where they'll just create a bunch of level 3 accounts and then have them go cut oak trees, for a couple days before they get hit with a ban wave. Like Jagex has made some, yeah, strides in detecting them. Um,
Interesting. I
Yeah,
yeah.
some of them have become really, really sophisticated, and it's been a few months since I've played LMS, but I know that occasionally I'd get matched up with just a Megatron, yeah, PKing bot that makes it very difficult to beat. And I know that I'm no slouch either. I think I've ranked something like 400 on the LMS high scores. I've got 1,000 wins and I'm a veteran with it. And my God, the average player stands no chance if they're an LMS and going up against these bots. But they're few and far between. I was like amazed when I was fighting them of like how good they've gotten. Like you can't just get away with one ticking and changing combat styles to beat these things like you can most of the bots in LMS. I wonder if they're still there. I'm not sure, but I know at one point I was really, really impressed with what they could do. But like Jagex would wipe them pretty quickly.
Wait,
it's
wait, so they've gotten beyond the point where you can't even one tick them, like where you so are you saying they're anticipating what you're about to pray next, or they still do that? They just do a bunch of armor switches and other things.
Yeah, the latter. So that I mean, you
Wow.
can try to one tick and change combat styles and deal damage that way. But some of them have been even more advanced that they would anticipate kind
Wow.
of they would anticipate like what was to come next.
Oh
If
my god.
you can't just switch like if you have some distance between you, you can't just switch into a melee weapon and expect them to pray melee. Like they're not going to pray melee unless you're within a few tiles of them. So I was really impressed.
That's
Just
fascinating.
yeah, right. Of like how the hell that they were able to do this because that I imagine think it's pretty technical. You have to understand the nuances of PKing, which most people don't. Most casual players don't, and then you have to understand how to code it in a way that will actually beat or has a chance of beating really competitive and good PKers. They figured it out.
Some of the most sophisticated software developers I've ever met are through videos I did on botting, and they were trying to code bots for RuneScape and doing a really good job at it. So Jagex is up against tough competition with them. But I do know I've seen like there's been a significant shift from botting into things like people in Venezuela gold farming manually to avoid detection. Um, and also Jagex I think has made some big strides on the front of kind of curving the amount of secondary market gold trade that happens. So people buying RuneScape GP for real life money through bonds and through enforcement of like punishing players for buying gold through secondary sellers. We could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think like why is gold selling bad, and why are bonds not bad even though it's buying gold from Jagex technically. So the trouble with gold being traded on the secondary market in any MMO is that it incentivizes people to do things like bot, hack other players, run scams in the game, because then they've got real life incentive to do that because they can sell the money. And so other MMOs like World of Warcraft, they try to combat this problem by making as many things not tradable as possible. So if you get a really good drop in the game, it's going to be bound to your account and you can't trade it. But RuneScape has never been like that. Everything's tradable. It's a free economy, except for that one time when they made that bad mistake of trying to take that away. And so it's like, well, crap. How do you like deal with this problem? Well, take this secondary market away and allow people to purchase gold from the game makers directly. And for Jagex, this also has the ancillary benefit of like, well, now they're profiting from the gold sale. And so when people buy gold in a video game, it kind of short circuits certain pathways. So like you're gonna jump straight to having Bandos armor, and then Jagex might see this as like potential membership revenue that they're losing out on because now they're not gonna play as long. And so by like getting the money from that gold sale, they make more money than they would have off the membership, versus if someone bought it from a third party seller, they lose out on all of that entirely.
Mm-hmm.
So number one, I think bonds were actually a really good introduction, because now people have a legitimate means to purchase gold, and I don't think it's like people are going to buy gold no matter what. And so giving them a means to do it legitimately is good. It also takes the profit away from all these nefarious actors. And then on top of that, recently, I think year and a half ago now, I did an interview with someone who was selling RuneScape gold and doing like $1 million a year in net profit. Like one of the biggest gold sellers. There's only $3 or $4 million gold sellers, and he was one of them. And Jagex introduced a new policy where they started punishing people who bought gold through secondary markets, and like I think they're doing like temporary bans and sending them a scary message, and then maybe permanent bans if they kept doing it. And today, gold prices are at a historic low for people selling gold. And I was talking to a RuneScape lure who I also did a video with, and like he's completely out of the scamming scene because it's just not worth it for him anymore. Like he can steal this money in the game, but he can't sell it for very much, and so it's just like not worth his time.
Interesting. Oh, I mean, I feel like at least when it comes to just massive inflation where gold prices are just so low now. Of course, I've been playing an Iron Man for like 7-8 years at this point, so like I've just never been involved in that scene for the most part. But being around the game, you kind of understand what's going on, generally speaking. But I feel like just the sheer amount of gold that's being printed by all these new bosses, and just everything just kind of shits out loot at this point. I feel like inevitably the prices are going to plummet. That is really fascinating though. Like, so I guess I was always curious because I thought in a way that third-party gold buying and selling services actually was almost like profitable for Jagex to keep them around in a sense. But you're saying the opposite. You're saying like it would be better almost if there was none of that.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I think it's the ideal solution is something like bonds. Like this is what other games have kind of done to combat it, because it's not like really inherently bad that somebody buys gold and gets himself cool armor in the game. It's just that like it encourages all these like things that are detrimental to the player experience because it exists. People start running bot farms, and they start trying to scam other players, and they start trying to hack your account. I heard I think it was an EverQuest dev express the sentiment that in World of Warcraft's heyday, it was like more profitable to hack into someone's World of Warcraft account than it was their bank account, because you could sell all their stuff for real
Oh
life
my
money.
God.
And so anything they can do to de-incentivize secondary gold trade for real life money, I think helps reduce the amount of like these negative player impacting activities that people are doing.
Interesting. So I'm also very curious because I feel like it's pretty easy to know what the major gold sites are, and being Jagex, being able to shut those down, or is there just a huge process that it takes to shut down these sites? I'm just
Oh
very
yeah, no,
curious.
they've shut down a few actually. They've sent cease and desist and all these legal threats. But I think it's challenging, especially when they set up shell companies in places like Cyprus. And I mean, Mason would know more about this type of stuff. But they have these complex business structures that are hard to pursue legally and put any real action on them to force them to stop. I do know that when I talked to this gold seller that was doing a ton of revenue, he had lost like a ton of money in gold just to bans alone. Like he always really struggled with keeping gold on accounts and not having Jagex just nuke them.
Wow. Yeah, because that definitely is something that I feel like people don't. I don't consider it. I don't consider like, okay, so these gold selling sites, there clearly has to be these accounts that are just filthy wealthy that have to somehow remain undetected somehow.
So what they do actually is often they'll have they won't keep any gold. Their new approach is they don't keep any gold, and so when someone goes and purchases from the website, or they'll keep very little gold, they'll then put out kind of like a request for a seller within their internal channels, and they'll find
Mm.
somebody, maybe a scammer, maybe a hacker who has that gold, and then they'll have the seller of the gold trade the buyer of the gold, and the gold like website owner doesn't have any accounts involved whatsoever.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so they mitigate their risk that way. That's like one technique that they started employing to try to get around these bans that they were suffering from.
How do you even detect that at that point? Like being able to tell if somebody's selling and buying, is it just purely like sometimes I actually wonder what is Jagex doing that can detect these things, especially when it's literally just a random player trading another random player technically. Is it just the consistency of it and the huge variety of players that they're trading and kind of, I don't know, like the meetups? Like, is there anything that can actually detect it accurately?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's tough. I think oftentimes like people that are selling gold to these websites do it frequently because they've got some sort of means of getting large quantities of gold.
Hmm.
And so they maybe get detected that way just because frequency they're doing it often. But yeah, I'm not sure.
Very interesting. But it would not be so like any of these bans, they're not actually 100% because there's no actual evidence that there's real life money being traded. But it's
Yeah.
just a very educated guess, I'm assuming. Like, okay, you're clearly something's going down.
Yeah, and I don't think they have any intentions of ever revealing their processes and how they
Of
detect it,
course.
because of course that would tip people off. But I imagine that, if one account hasn't traded another account before or interacted with that account, I imagine Jagex has a way of knowing that, and then all of a sudden there's a large sum of gold traded from one to the other, and then that probably flags their system. And if any JMods are listening to this, pounding their heads on their desks, I probably oversimplified their process, way too much. But that's how I imagine that uh, that is one way that they bust people.
Okay, so Mason, in our last episode, we were kind of talking about Crusader game events that you guys are had like hosted, and I believe earlier this year you guys had the. I think you just sponsored it potentially, but it was like an EVscape Hootie Tootie Speedrun Cup. Do you guys have any plans to sponsor any other events upcoming? Is there anything that you can reveal?
Yeah, unfortunately, nothing I can reveal yet. But there's definitely more events coming in the pipeline. We've had a battle royale this past year, as well as a speedrun cup that was sponsored by Jagex, Crusader Talent, and then we also hosted the Crusader Classic, which was sponsored by Jagex. That was a PvP tournament where our creators got to compete with one another, and it was casted live by EVscape. It was so much fun. With me being a PKer and my PvP content being my personal favorite, it was great getting like all of the Crusaders that are under the roof as an agency to compete with one another. It's a good team building event as well. But yeah, more to come. I wish I had a big announcement to drop, but EVscape plans on hosting events on a quarterly basis, and anything he's behind, I'm behind too, and as is the rest of Crusader. So more to come down the pipe.
Very cool. And is there any like I guess just as Crusader Talent in general, because I think it's been around for what, 3-ish years? Is that correct?
Just over 4 years. Just
Okay,
over
wow.
4 years. It's been a while now that I look at it in hindsight.
Are you guys planning on expanding even further, or do you guys kind of like like I know you've already expanded 2 other games. Is there a further plan to continue that, or is it really just about kind of containing what you already have and kind of flourishing in that area?
Yeah, mostly the latter. I mean, most businesses wanna grow and expand, and we do too. But we're very very cautious. I have to say no to so many creators that want to join Crusader who might be a good fit simply because I just can't let us get too big for our staff to be able to deliver an elite service. If everyone had it their way, we would have hundreds of creators on our roster and we wouldn't be able to get anything done. There's just too many people to support. So we've been growing incrementally where it makes sense, where creator expectations are aligned with where we can actually deliver. RuneScape is our bread and butter, with over 50 of our creators coming from this title alone. But if there are creators in other titles that have value to the sponsors that we're working with and have reasonable expectations, and we will absolutely engage with them and sign them in other categories. But we don't have like a big campaign or a big effort to expand into XYZ title or category moving forward. Although I will say that our business, well, it could be a standalone business, but Affinity Media Group is a part of the same umbrella as Crusader Talent, and Affinity Media represents the advertisers. So oftentimes we work with advertisers who have budgets that are simply greater than we can fill with the creators on our roster. Just think about it, like zoom out a bit and think about the scope of YouTube and how many channels there are, and then zoom back in and look at Crusader Talent, a mid-sized talent agency with about 65 content creators on it. That's only a tiny sliver. It's a drop in the ocean of how many creators there are out there. And so oftentimes these advertisers will choose to work with the Crusaders, but also have budgets and have the desire to work with creators outside of the RuneScape category, even outside of the creators on our roster. So we've been developing that division of our business, and Jagex is one of our clients. So I get to interface with Jagex and 3 different businesses, which is great: CreatorCrafted, Crusader, and now Affinity Media. And we help those advertisers. We broker the deals between the advertisers and the creators to expand the reach of the advertisers, because it can be quite tricky booking deals with creators. It requires a level of know-how that very few brands have in-house, and even if they have the know-how, it's often difficult for them to execute. So they oftentimes outsource this service of campaign management to other third-party agencies, and one of them is Affinity Media.
I'm curious when it comes to creators doing their own sponsorships, like by themselves without an agency, like trying to negotiate with sponsors, because I feel like one of the things, at least on Twitch, I know Stream Elements does a lot of sponsor gathering for a lot of creators, and it feels like for a lot of them they're kind of ripoffs. And
Yeah.
I'm just very curious, do you feel like there's something to be said about a creator's value of like what they're bringing? And do you think being a part of an agency, because clearly you do, being involved in Crusader Talent, like understand what a creator's value is? So do you think there's something to be said about those that are kind of just negotiating their own sponsors? Any like tips or any advice that you can give to those kind of creators?
Yeah, I think obviously there's a bit of bias here because I own an agency, but I'm also a researcher. I'm pursuing a doctorate, specifically studying how brand sponsorships impact content creators. And my thesis is supervised by Edinburgh Business School and Harvard Business School faculty, and Crusader's also partnered with Harvard Business School faculty to conduct research on the creator economy. And one of the things that we're studying is exactly that, of like our brands taking advantage of creators, and in what sense. Like, we have to have a deep understanding of how does this creator economy operate, and what is the role of an independent creator versus the agencies in all of this. And I find that that creators who are represented by agencies, well, of course it depends on the agency, because there's some really bad ones out there, and there's a lot of really great ones out there. By having a representative who's more business savvy, who has more experience in negotiating things, I mean, just naturally you get an advantage by having a representative. I mean, think about people who represent themselves in court. I think it's called pro se, is the Latin word used in law, that to represent yourself. And in most cases, maybe with some exceptions of maybe traffic court, you're better off having an attorney represent you. There's just nuances that a layperson simply can't, understand or learn on the spot, and they're not going to be as savvy, especially when interfacing with the law. And so I think the same applies with booking sponsorships, because there's a contract that governs every sponsorship, and unless you have an ability to interpret a contract from a technical legal perspective, you don't really know what you're signing. And we found over the years, and still to this day, so many brands that just have predatory clauses. I mean, the rights to the creator's name, image, and likeness in perpetuity. So by agreeing to a sponsorship deal, which you think is just a 60-second ad slot, you're also signing away, you're also granting the rights for them to use your name, image, and likeness forever, as if you're endorsing the brand. And then they can do whatever they want with it to put your brand as a creator on their website, put you on a billboard if they wanted. And that's just one example of many that, I can catch these things, and my staff can catch these things in contracts and negotiate them, down, or, their removal altogether. And independent creators, really struggle with doing that. Of course, exceptions apply. Being part of an agency and having a manager, isn't necessary to be a content creator, but it certainly does help. And look, we got one of them on the call, that I've represented for several years now. And Crumb he's savvy. Look, he built this figurines business, from scratch, and into a respectable business that gets to sponsor creators and still be profitable. But he still is a part of an agency because it adds value to him. And I think hearing it straight from the horse's mouth, is to, I suppose, the benefits from a creator's perspective is probably best for anyone listening to the podcast. Crumb?
Yeah, look, I would sign away my firstborn child if they offer me any decent chunk of money, and I'm sure as heck not reading any contract they give me either. I'm just gonna slap my signature on that and pass that back and ask when the check's gonna come in. And then when the check doesn't come in, I'm gonna be in real trouble, because I'm certainly not gonna try to sue them or anything like this. So yeah, no, it's really valuable to be signed with an agency that just handles all that. And I think you get better deals too, right? Because you guys are basically like these companies want to spend. They've got an advertising budget to spend, and they want to get rid of it as soon as possible because it's someone's job to spend it. And so when you're with an agency, they'll approach you, Mason, right? And they'll book these big creator deals with 10, 20, 30 creators. And if I was trying to do that on my own, I wouldn't get nearly as the size of deals or the amount of deals, and then also would have all these troubles collecting payments and managing these expectations. So yeah, it's just not something I'd ever want to do on my own.
Yeah, and from a brand's perspective, it's just more convenient. I mean, just think of put yourself in a campaign manager's shoes, and say you have a budget that to book, say, 20 creators for a campaign. Most often, if having to choose between having to deal with 20 different people, i.e. independent creators, and contract those deals separately and manage the operations of each activation with each creator individually, versus going through a single point of contact, as an agency, and you get to speak with another industry professional, that can help coordinate all of the 20 creators, and you could just all you have to do is cut one check at the end of the campaign instead of 20 individual ones. There's most reasonable people can ascertain that it's more advantageous for the brands to do that, and that's exactly why they prefer working with agencies, generally speaking, than independent creators, because it becomes a hassle. I mean, look, I book creators all the time, so does my staff through Affinity, and sometimes the expectations of professionalism when dealing with a talent manager versus an independent creator it's vastly different. It's just way easier to work with people who have who have business experience, who have done these things, and who are representing the creators than it is to work directly with them. So it's not even just my biased perspective in being an agency owner of a talent agency. It's just that I've been the principal negotiator in over 2,000 of these influencer deals. So it's just easier that way. And Crumb's right. There are creators, particularly the smaller ones, who simply wouldn't get the attention of the advertisers if they weren't signed with an agency. So people will reach out to people like Solo Mission and Torvesta on our roster, and just thinking that they're reaching out to those two. And of course, we always prioritize getting deals for whoever the brand reaches out to first. But then if they have an interest, oftentimes they'll ask, "Hey, do you have other creators as well that we could work with that are that play old school RuneScape?" We're your Crusader's a one-stop shop for it. So it affords opportunities to creators that they otherwise wouldn't have had just by being a part of the network.
That's really cool. I know.
I can say,
yeah, go for it.
Okay. I in the very early days, I took a couple deals on my own, and it was a nightmare collecting the money for that. Like, it was such a hassle. And then I signed. Well, I didn't sign with them, but I was partnered up with another talent agency before Crusader, and it felt pretty predatory the way that they were structuring the deals. Like, they were paying me on a by viewership basis, but I'm pretty sure they were booking flat rates, and they were giving me a really bad rate per 1,000 views. And what I like about Crusader is that Mason and the team always tries to negotiate a flat rate first, which is super important when you're uploading these videos, because to have some expectation of what your income might be, regardless of views, is just puts a big weight off my chest. To be able to plan a little bit financially for what the income might be, instead of relying on the performance of the video entirely.
Yep. I was gonna say, it looks like, and I'm not sure if you guys are fully aware, but YouTube looks like they're doing their own sort of thing called Brand Connect, which I was just introduced to several weeks ago, where they are trying. It almost seems like they're trying to become the middleman with these sponsorships on their own site of getting sponsorships directly to you as a YouTuber. And I don't know if you have any sort of idea of what that's going to do to ad agencies, if anything.
Yeah. So YouTube's always had a little something. I think the platform is called maybe Grapevine before Brand Connect, and YouTube. Maybe it was acquired through an acquisition, but they had some service that they owned that brokered these deals on behalf of the advertisers. And from my perspective, and I haven't really dug deep into Brand Connect, there really hasn't been any sponsorship opportunities that have been even worth looking at. The rates are super low, and they've got a long way to go before creators will take it seriously. But I absolutely love the idea of YouTube being the intermediary between advertisers and creators, which creators are always going to need that representation no matter what, even if YouTube is brokering the deals. For example, there are platforms like Stream Elements that some deals are better than others, yeah, but you still have, it's still nice to have a manager go in and look for the deals, negotiate them, accept and decline them, submit the drafts for you, collect payment for you. None of that goes away with having an intermediary. So that there's already intermediaries that exist, and platforms that facilitate them. But a big problem in the creator economy is the collection of payment. So we work with sponsors and I can generalize this to any creator that takes sponsorships, they work with brands and agencies that are located all around the world. What are you going to do if you've got $1,000 contract and there's an LLC? The sponsor is run by an agency that has an LLC in Cyprus and they don't pay you. Well, it's very hard, let me tell you, to collect payment, from bad actors. Like, there's ways to negotiate upfront payment, of course, but most, the standard in the creator economy is that these deals are paid for after the sponsorships are done. And yeah, you have a contract that may assure you get paid. However, enforcing that contract in foreign jurisdictions is a whole nother issue, and it's one that's very complicated and very costly. For me to call up your legal counsel and have a matter sorted, and most creators and agencies have the same issues, that it's very expensive. It'd be $300, $400, $500 an hour, depending on the attorney. And for them to even write a demand letter, it can be very costly and erode margins quickly. And so the collection of payment is just a major issue. A lot of advertisers engage in slow pay practices because what are you going to do about it? You're going to file a lawsuit that costs tens of thousands of dollars, or at least thousands of dollars out of the gate, and sue a sponsor that you probably want to maintain a positive relationship with? And the answer is most often not. So what do? Well, you have to sit and wait, and being a part of an agency, if any particular brand has a past due balance of more than like 15 days, we give them a bit of a grace period. But anything beyond 15 days, their whole account gets put on pause. The whole agency does not release any more ads for them or submit any drafts until they make us whole. And that's a way for us to band together and gain some leverage over these advertisers. And so to have an intermediary that that puts funds in an escrow. So like, imagine you're a brand, right? And you want to book creators and you want to go through YouTube to do it through Brand Connect or whatever this portal evolves into. It would be awesome to have these brands prepay basically, and have YouTube hold their money in what's called an escrow. And once the deliverables are successfully completed, then those funds are automatically released, or they're released within X amount of days after the video goes live. That would solve a lot of problems in the creator economy, is to have a reliable intermediary. And look, I would even be happy if YouTube took a percentage of this, and monetize this, to have the assurance that all of these creators will be paid on time and in full, and there's going to be no BS. There's no administrative burden or legal cost for them to take a percentage of the deal. I'd be happy with, and something that I've been calling for in the industry for a while, because you also have an issue with who's actually facilitating these deals. Very few states in the U.S. require a license to be a talent manager. Any Joe Blow can open a talent agency tomorrow and begin representing YouTubers. And so, there's of course instances of fraud whereby, these agencies run off with the money of the creators, and it's a mess. There's not a ton of regulation, and so like the introduction of Brand Connect, assuming it actually catches up to what the industry needs, would be a huge relief.
Interesting. Yeah, it does seem still like a completely new industry to be doing what you're doing, and it is funny how just the average person can just start it up.
Look, there's an opportunity. You mentioned that it's this is new. Yeah, it's absolutely new. Like, there's very little research done on the creator economy, which is why I've dedicated my academic career. I went back to school after a bachelor's degree to pursue a doctorate to add to the body of knowledge on this subject, because I've been a practitioner for 4 years now, and most these researchers that are conducting research on the creator economy don't have the practical experience, and they don't have much to go off of. There isn't much academic literature on the creator economy at large, or influencer marketing, which is one of the biggest marketing tactics in the world right now. There are studies that suggest it's more effective than traditional digital advertising means, and that's why so many brands are investing money into it more so than traditional advertising means. And so there's a huge there's so many research questions and like gaps in the literature that have yet to be answered because it is so new. And I think that as this industry matures some more, you're going to get more regulation introduced. You're going to have the general layperson will have a greater understanding of what like influencer marketing will be demystified a bit. Everyone's here sponsors, but very few people actually understand the mechanisms of how it works. And so the more research that gets conducted, the more textbooks that are made, the more it's taught in schools, and ultimately the more people will eventually understand about it.
That is the really fascinating thing, is just like me growing up, there was no such thing as being a YouTuber. Nowadays,
Yeah.
I actually wonder what it's like for Gen Z to like just kind of be in a world where now this is an actual career path if you chose to be a content creator, and it's not scoffed at.
Yeah,
I know a lot of
I mean,
kids say it's their dream job.
Yeah.
yeah, there was a pretty interesting study that's actually getting cited in my thesis. I should know it better, but there was a survey that was conducted by some group, and among the professions there's like firefighter, or doctor, police officer, YouTuber, and YouTuber was it was the number one career choice of these
Wow.
children under like say 13, somewhere around there, and it was like by a considerably wide margin. So Gen Alpha, I think that's the generation that's younger than Gen Z, if I'm not mistaken. They spend a lot of time on social media. They spend a lot of time on YouTube. Everyone's heard and everyone's seen the iPad babies that sit at the dinner table with screens pulled up, so their parents can keep them to shut up. I hope I don't become one of those parents, and maybe I would appreciate it when I do have a rugrat that won't shut up, and putting a screen in front of them will get them to quiet down. So I've got I can level with them there, but I think that this industry is only going to develop, and I think the research suggests that, and I think just the demand for authenticity suggests that. People don't. There's going to be a market for traditional means of entertainment like Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime Video. Like people still are going to watch those things. I don't necessarily think that the independent creators are going to take down Hollywood per se, but it's becoming Hollywood and the entertainment industry at large has their hands full, because anyone with an internet connection and a smartphone and or a computer can become a creator and create content with very minimal barrier to entry compared to what it was like say 20, 30 years ago, hell, even 15 years ago, to actually provide entertainment to people and in mass. So the industry's got a long way to go, and it's exciting. It's exciting to be at the forefront of it, really. Like there's just a lot to be learned about phenomena of how these brand sponsorships have impacted creators. Like there are unintentional behavioral consequences as a result of these sponsors, and that's what my thesis digs into.
Interesting. Yeah, it's a strange time we live in. Also, I've been really fascinated with AI and just like even like AI productions. I mean, like full on artificial intelligence created content. Do you is there in the next 10, 20 years, I mean, do you know of anything we can expect when it comes to AI, like genuinely like creating content by itself? Like are we gonna be taken over as humans? Like nobody wants the human content anymore. We want the AI stuff because they really know what we want.
I'm so glad you brought up AI, because it's an area that I'm so fascinated with, and I know Crumb is too, because it is so incredibly impressive right now. And the people who are pioneering this AI development, insist that, okay, what you see now, what GPT-4 can do, and DALL-E, through that's developed by OpenAI, this is just a fraction of what AI will be capable of. And its productions right now are like what it's able to produce, what it's able to output is incredibly impressive. I encourage anyone to who hasn't played around with it, go to openai.com or check out Dolly and just type in a prompt for it to create a visual. And it does a pretty remarkable job of creating a Van Gogh painting from scratch, but make it a chicken head instead of a human, and it'll pull from the style of painting that Van Gogh had and make it look realistic. And we can do that in a matter of seconds. We've also seen AI taken over. Well, not taken over, but starting to become a real problem, particularly for creators. I know Joe Rogan's talked about it on his podcast a bunch, of how the people are using AI to use the likeness of Joe Rogan. So like this AI depiction of Rogan, and they're able to copy his voice to get him to endorse their brands. And so, there are advertisements being run where it sounds just like Joe Rogan. I mean, you would not know the difference. And he's not the only one that's being impacted by this. And it's virtually indistinguishable from reality. And I think we're going to get to a point in our lifetimes, and I think it's going to happen way sooner than people, the general population may appreciate, that AI may very well be indistinguishable from reality. And I'm interested to hearing Crumb's thoughts on this, because I know we've discussed that a bit, but never in depth like this.
Well, I think it's interesting, Mason. You dabbled in starting a YouTube channel and really leveraging AI to help with the script writing process.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
know
Look.
you ran out of personal time to keep pursuing it, but yeah, you did a whole video pretty well.
Yeah, no, I did. And this video, it's the channel's called Art Unveiled, and it's got 16,000 views. It has one video on it, and I used AI, specifically ChatGPT-4, to help with a lot of the research and script writing, how to create a narrative around this painting done by Emanuel Loitza, called Washington Crossing the Delaware. It's iconic for the Americans listening. Maybe you've heard of it, and I'm sure if you've seen it, you'd recognize it. But it's a really arduous process to conduct the research that's required to make an informative YouTube video, particularly of art. There's a lot of mystery behind art and what was happening at the time. Why the artist created what they did, and the techniques that they've used. And using AI to as a research buddy was really helpful. And I made sure to fact check everything, because of course not everything that the LLMs, a large language model, that's what AI models like ChatGPT are called, or are categorized. They're not always perfect, of course. There's some misinformation, disinformation, and a big issue is biases and in the AI models that provide biased answers because of the people who are coding them. And my supervisor at Harvard Business School does a lot of research in this regard. I wouldn't do her work any justice in talking about it, but there's a lot. It's a deep, entangled web to go down in talking about this stuff. But yeah, I experimented with it, and I was really impressed with its output. And look, the YouTube video speaks for itself. On a fresh channel to have 16,000 views, it doesn't sound like much compared to the 3 million that Crumb's able to produce on his channel. But from scratch and from nothing, and AI generated, mostly AI generated information, is pretty impressive. And I think that it's only going to get more sophisticated with time, where people can actually create videos and edit them and have them voiced all with AI. And I think it's coming soon.
Crazy.
I'm excited to potentially see AI. I know there's a few projects in the works, but none of them are really public, and none of them you can really use. And someone like me can't use yet. But to be able to generate video from text and do it in a way that is like actually entertaining to watch, that would be like so useful for me, because oftentimes these stories I cover, they don't have any footage to show while I'm talking about them. And so gotta get really, really, really creative with stock footage, and try not to show too many website screenshots with highlights to keep it entertaining. And I don't have the ability to go out and like hire actors and do sets and like reenact whatever it is that I'm talking about. So maybe if AI could generate some visuals for that, it would be really good. I use it all the time now as a kind of like a writing pal and a brainstorming pal, especially when it comes to like structuring stories and like what should the narrative arc be, and how can I rewrite this so it follows principles of style. Like I'm really critical of things. Like I never want to waste a word in one of these videos. Every single word counts, and if even like as much as repeating something will hurt engagement and make it less entertaining. So I found ChatGPT to be really good at being like a rewriting buddy, but hasn't been so helpful yet for the type of research that I do. Like it's not able to figure out all the different aliases that somebody has ever used online, and then pull up Wayback Machine and take up a 15-year-old forum post and then tie that into the story of how maybe they turned into somebody that stole $15 million of crypto. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it's pretty specific. It's pretty nuanced. Yeah, I think it's gonna be a while before I can replace you. I think your job's safe, Crumb.
I hope so. I am a little scared that it's gonna get so good that people are just generating captivating videos, with a prompt and a click of a button at some point, that I'm going to be out of a job because I really don't want to have to go back to programming. So I
Yeah.
think we got a couple more years yet.
Yeah, look at this. Look at it this way. Everyone, at least in the states, and most people on Earth have access to the internet and have access to vast amounts of information, and they can learn new skills. And yet, people still don't necessarily do it. Just because people will have the access, to do these things, and they could leverage AI to, shortcut some of the learning curve, doesn't necessarily mean that people will. I think more jobs are safe than the average person may think. Like when AI, quote unquote, takes over. Like people still have to be able to employ that AI to do things, and it requires a bit of know-how. Not just a few sentence, a few sentence text input to automatically pop up a YouTube channel that's going to be competitive with all of the other YouTube channels that are out there. So I think that particularly creative jobs are, I don't want to say safe, because like there's always going to be an evolution of careers as technology advances, just as we've seen all throughout history. So AI is just another variable, but it is rapidly improving.
Yeah, no, it's some crazy times. I literally cannot even imagine what's gonna be our reality in the next like 15, 20 years. It's gonna be
Oh, it's
a completely
exciting, isn't
different
it?
world. Yeah.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Okay. I think we've pretty much covered everything. I want to just run it by you guys. Do you have anything else that you guys want to talk about before we kind of wrap things up?
Is it Say or Sater, or maybe
Sater, Sae Bae, Say, yeah,
Sae?
anything really
Mr.
works.
Bay.
Yeah.
Dude, I don't know if maybe you've talked about it before. I'm curious to hear a little bit about you. I know you play an Iron Man, and you have an Iron Man series on a separate YouTube channel, and you started the Sae Bae cast. And if you want, I'd be curious to hear about how you got into the Sae Bae cast to begin with, because you've talked to some big names, and like I mentioned before we started this call, I've even watched many of them when doing research for my own RuneScape videos. So yeah,
That
I'd like a
that
little
was
intro.
flattering to hear. But yeah, no, the Sae Bae cast honestly has been like a really fulfilling project for me. I've been doing it weekly for, actually in 2 days it'll have been 3 years of doing this. So
Wow,
um,
congrats.
thank you. Yeah, no, I started just like the idea was, just talking about RuneScape with random people, because personally I've always enjoyed long form talking about interests of mine. Just anybody that's talking about it, I think is fascinating. So obviously RuneScape was my biggest interest. And yeah, it kind of started off with just talking to friends, people that I already knew. And then pretty quickly started, I was a streamer at the time, pretty up and coming. And then talking to creators, and then getting like Mod Arcane, Mod Husky on in the early episodes. That was amazing. And then, Solo Mission, I think, was the first real big guest I had on that was extremely intimidating. And then, having Foe, and then eventually Bodhi and all these other people. But really what it was just asking for people to come on. And it's very surprising sometimes just knowing like how willing people are to just sit down and talk. And I think one of the cool things as well was just the explosion, at least this past year, in my, I guess, YouTube career, like explosion by a huge margin, but relative to other creators, maybe not so much. But I think just those early episodes really popping off was a really cool experience for me, because like now some of the episodes, I know the like Mod Sween episode has over 200,000 views, which initially I would have never imagined like getting even over 100,000 views on a conversation where the entire video is just me playing RuneScape in the background and just talking. But I think like the algorithm popping off, and again, like Mason was saying, like actually I guess both of you were kind of saying how YouTube wants those longer videos. They want to have that. They want people on their site longer, and they've also been trying to get their podcast game up. So they've now created new segments where podcasting is an actual like form of a playlist. So, and they really been trying to pump those up, I think. And I think that's kind of why the algorithm hit the Sae Bae cast so well, was just because this is a fresh podcast that they can, try to funnel viewers into. But no, it's been really fun, and it's something where like I really want to continue it for the future, because one thing with podcasting in general is it really is all about consistency.
Mm-hmm.
And just with any sort of creative thing, you're not going to be the best ever at it initially. It's all a process. You become a better host over time. You learn things. You know how to interact with people a little bit better over time. And I think the most fascinating part is just having gotten to meet so many people, and going to TwitchCon was like an amazing experience, because I had talked to so many of them just, for 3 hours in a Discord call, and then meeting them in person was like, we already kind of had that connection. So I think that's like the most fulfilling, is just getting to talk to people one-on-one or one-on-two. So
I think what's so interesting is yeah, of course, getting to know these creators outside of, well, their YouTube channels. I mean, most people don't get that opportunity as casual fans, but like you're just scrolling through your YouTube channel and seeing like the kinds of people you've gotten to spend time with, Mod Zaiza, Mod Sween, Nine Rain. I know Zoe's a part of it, Abyss, Katarina, Coxie. Like these are all nice people. Like these are good people. These are good humans. Like just generally speaking, like they're very interesting. They've made a career as creatives, but like behind the scenes, and as individuals outside of their careers as creators, they're just generally good people. And so the RuneScape community, I've just been so in love with over the years, and I imagine you have been too, and which is probably why you've had so much success as a podcast host, and being supported by some of these bigger names that in other titles there are egos involved, and I'm sure that's the case in the RuneScape community to some extent here, but I feel like the barriers are down compared to what the content creator communities are like in other titles, wouldn't you say?
Totally, yeah.
I think one thing that helps on YouTube too with RuneScape content is people are playing a clicker game and they want content to consume, and the long form content gets really high watch time because of that.
Yeah, no, that's definitely for sure. Like there's some episodes where most episodes that I have are around 2 to like the 4-ish hour range, mostly in between 2 and 3, but I've had some really longer episodes, and even on like the average 3-hour episode, like the watch time will be up around an hour and a half. I mean, that's just very crazy for a lot of YouTube content to have the average watch time half of it. Yeah. And
yeah, that's nuts.
I do occasionally get the negative comment like, why is this auto playing? I got woken up to a conversation with you, because, they'll watch like a solo mission video or whatever, and then, it'll auto play a couple other videos. And then all of a sudden they're stuck in this 4-hour conversation where they wake up and they're like, oh. So, that probably plays a little bit of a factor into it, but it's definitely really cool to see. And also with bringing it to Spotify and all these other podcasting platforms, and being able to see just the analytics on those ends. Because with the podcasting platforms, there isn't necessarily that algorithm that can be hit as well. There probably is some form of it potentially on Spotify. I know I've discovered podcasts just from the more like section where like you listen to a podcast and you see what other ones are going on. But there's no real autoplay thing or any like very well I guess created like, I don't know, autoplay, like just sort of
Yeah.
recommended section at all. But it is cool to see as well the analytics on there and just being able to kind of see how it's doing on other ends.
Yeah,
I
you know
wonder.
what else is something so super cool about this community is that like right now as we speak, yeah, there's someone in Sweden that's hearing my voice. There's someone in New Zealand. There's someone in Australia. There's someone in Canada. All over the world. This game is popular all over the world, and as is your. I think I've maybe had the opportunity to look at your analytics. But perhaps not. I'm just used to seeing so many RuneScape
It's very
creator
similar
analytics for
across.
sponsors. Yeah. I imagine well, I know it's very similar across, and I imagine yours is Lend as well. And so, like, you get the opportunity, at least through YouTube, to reach a really wide audience, and its recommendation, capabilities are more robust, I think, than other podcast platforms like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So. Keep pumping out the content on YouTube. It seems to be working pretty well.
Yeah, for sure. Crumb, what were you gonna say?
I just want to say I've got a guilty pleasure of watching like there's like I know you do them too, the ramble
Yeah,
content
yeah,
that people in the high level community do. I've got a big guilty pleasure of watching those. I find them really calming for whatever
yeah.
reason. And nothing like listening to somebody talk about two ticking fish for an hour
No, no, but
straight.
there is, it's not for everybody, but this is beyond RuneScape even. It's like there is something so fascinating about somebody that's very passionate about something, them just talking about it.
Yeah.
Now, it's not for everybody, of course, but the people that really gravitate toward that, it's just amazing. I mean, I had a brief obsession with chess, and even just listening to Agad Matter just talking about a game for 20 minutes about like what's happening in this chess game. Like it, if you're not into it, you're not into it. But there's something just nice about listening to somebody ramble about what's going on. I
It
don't
gets you
know.
into a trance. I'm never more relaxed than when I'm just doing something mindless on RuneScape and listening to some sort of long form ramble video about,
Totally.
RuneScape. It seems. I was curious if like the podcast was actually kind of born out of those ramble videos originally, and that like because I've kind of relate to it in the sense that like I was doing these skill or progress videos and it was part of that niche, and the high level community has this like ramble thing that they do that I love, and I was just kind of wondering if that's like partly how the podcast started.
Yeah, my whole YouTube channel alone started as just a project. It was just like I'm gonna upload random stuff. I'm not gonna treat it as anything, just anything lucrative really. And very early on, I started with the rambles and just talking about what I'm doing in game because that's what I enjoyed watching. I've never really cared that much about a production value when it comes to RuneScape videos. I just want to watch somebody do something entertaining or talk about stuff. And I don't think there was a enough on YouTube of just people talking about what they're doing in game. So I decided I would do that. And I've never been like great at editing or great at, trying to create a narrative with a story or anything. It's really just I think that's what I wanted to do, and that was very organic of like I just want to talk. I just want to talk to other people as well. And whoever wants to watch it, can watch it. So I think,
I think
yeah.
there's people are realizing there's more and more of a market for that unedited, unfiltered style of content on YouTube now that so much of it is gone. Like, YouTube's kind of been Mr. Beastized in a way. Everyone's trying to go
Yes.
for these crazy high production, high octane edits that, light up every single neuron in your brain. But then we have like Sam Sulkin, the guy that's doing like the like long form fitness blogs recently, that's just been getting insane views recently,
Mm-hmm.
with unedited content and just talking to the camera. Yeah, yeah, there's definitely a market for it, and I think now more than ever that a lot of what felt like YouTube was about originally has gone away and turned into more of these big productions. I think there's people are hungry for it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, no. And I do think that's really cool that, YouTube really did have that huge surge of just kind of clickbait, kind of just fast paced, super, super fast paced, never lose attention. And yeah, people definitely do crave the kind of just organic conversations. So it's fun to
Yeah.
be able to do it. And it's also cool because I don't have much pressure to upkeep a production. Whereas, some YouTubers that'll remain nameless, like, some people will focus so much on immediate growth. So they'll come out with these crazy videos that really won't be sustainable. And then as soon as people expect that from the channel and they're not being able to produce that anymore, it's like the channel dies pretty quickly, or it's like, oh, okay, well, you kind of came out with your couple bangers and now it's back to just this kind of lower quality stuff. So I feel like my slow drip of just nothing extravagant, just talking, I think has been really like relaxing in my own life, of just knowing I don't really have much pressure or much, like, I don't know, just some level to reach with each new video.
Yeah, I just had this thought the other day. I was watching Torvesta's most recent video, or maybe it was his video before, second most recent video. It doesn't matter. But it was a very basic edge style PKing video, and like I watched all of it and I loved it, and I it just dawned on me that it had been a really long time since I watched just a very basic video. There's no crazy storyline behind it. There's no like massive high production value, editing styles that are going in. It was edge PKing and then a bit of bounty hunter PKing, with, just with commentary. And I personally, I loved it, and I enjoyed every minute of it. And I certainly know that there's content like this out there already, but to see like one of the big names like Torvesta, kind of go back to his roots and produce a video that is just simple, not reinventing the wheel, not coming up with this crazy challenge, not grinding for 1,000 hours, just PKing an edge and talking about it, commentating over it to get a max DDS spec. I mean, that was the purpose of the video. See if I can hit a 50/50 DDS spec, which is possible now. If you didn't know, I didn't know until video. It is. I really enjoyed it.
It's the Bodhi recipe of just Bodhi just comes out with a video that's just very old school, very classic, of just going through clips, commentating what he's doing. But he's extremely entertaining, and he's been in the community for 12 plus years. So
yeah, it's so funny. Like you've got creators who are just racking their brains for hours and hours and hours on thumbnails. Most of them do, and I know that Crumb may be guilty of it too. Of just really getting into the the level of detail that the average viewer it may not even notice, but makes a difference in the eyes of the creator, and they spend a lot of time developing it. And then you got someone like Bodhi, who would just put up a freeze frame of just a random clip in the video, and he's still averaging 150 to 200,000 views, and that's significant. Okay, that's not a small number of people. I mean, that's for the RuneScape community, that's quite large. And yeah, he's an OG. He's the biggest, or certainly top 3 on Twitch in the category, and he's able to get away with not having this massive high production value. And I think the reason people like that, and I think the way and the reason people like your podcast, and the reason I like Torvesta's edge style simple PKing video, is simply it all goes back to authenticity of like there's no like manufactured script here. That this is just a raw entertainment. Someone whose opinion I value, or at least find entertaining, and you get a big chunk of it to watch and enjoy. And I think that's why people value influencer endorsements so much over just like random talking heads on TV, like ad commercials or billboards. Like there's just more value in authenticity than the alternative.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's cool. It's just cool knowing that this has become something that I can do as a job, in a sense. It's not a job whatsoever. There's absolutely no work required. It's all fun for me. But it's just cool living in the age of the internet, where you can really reach out to so many thousands of people across the world, and just so freely too. They're back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, like you had to become like a movie star to be on the TV. Nowadays, just have a phone, which every single person has. You can just start creating your own content. It's just really fascinating living in the time we do.
It is. It is. You ever get a little high and think about what it would be like to explain like what an airplane is to a fucking pilgrim? You know, like it really is amazing. Like the access to technology and information that we have and how far we've come as humans. That is things that we take for granted, like having a smartphone. To look up the world's information, at our fingertips in seconds. I mean, that hasn't been around for that long. I mean,
Nope.
Humanity's only been in existence for a tiny sliver of the age of the universe, and the technological advancements that have been made in the last 100 years alone is such a tiny blip in time that it's just really fascinating to think about, like what maybe the perspectives of people that aren't we maybe consider the quite old the Pilgrims or the early settlers in the of the United States, and to explain that you don't have to die from the whooping cough anymore. Like we have antibiotics now for that. Like we have ways that you can sterilize yourself and not die by the age of like 35 because of the advancements in medicine over the years. That's just not something that very many people in humanity have gotten to take advantage of, and it's something that I think about pretty often, just because I'm a nerd and I think it's cool because
I'm with you.
And then there's the line of thought of like, okay, what's to come in the future? Of like, look at how different the world is from even 100 years ago. It's vastly different than it is now. I mean, people were riding horses, okay, as a means for transportation. You had horses, you had boats. All right. I don't even know if you had the steam engine. Maybe I'll give you the steam engine 100 years ago. But think of what's to come in the next 100 years. What humanity's going to do, and it could turn dark quickly with AI and nuclear weapons and escalating conflicts between nations. But I think I try to remain optimistic of what's to come, and it's very exciting to not know what we don't know, and that
Yes.
we got more resources than ever to develop technology in ways that we hadn't before, and so that just accelerates the development of things and hopefully improves the livelihoods of people as a result.
Yeah, I remain an optimist when it comes to the future. I think I can't remember. It was either Obama or him quoting Martin Luther King, or it was Martin Luther King. It's for some reason I'm thinking Obama in this. He quoted Martin Luther King, I think, but like the arc of history leans toward justice or something like that. Like something like where I guess it's the optimist in me that just imagines a world where we continually kind of come together as humanity. And there's always going to be conflict. There's always going to be problems. But I think at least, again, the optimist in me imagines a world where we do start really, understanding and coming together and, kind of summing up our differences and being able to truly like love one another. Because I don't know. And who knows what the future of the technological advances will be. And I don't even think we can imagine what it would be. Because again, when you were saying like imagining airplanes, like 200 years ago, what are you doing? How could you imagine a metal tube in the sky carrying people in a controlled manner across the sea?
Yeah, I mean, it's indistinguishable from magic. I mean, I think Elon Musk famously says that the technology is indistinguishable from magic, or will be, just like it is if you put yourselves in the shoes of people in the past and explain the technology we have today. But I agree with you, and I share that worldview. And I think it's as cheesy as it sounds that love really is the answer, and remaining positive and being compassionate, helping one another, being empathetic. That's just going to make for a better world. And if everyone were to do that, imagine where we'd be as a species if we stopped killing each other.
Yeah.
But then there's some people who debate or take the position that there needs to be conflict, like a world without conflict and a world without pain, sorrow is dystopian. There's lots of books on this, Anthem being one of them. No, Anthem was a dystopian novel, but the one I'm thinking of there was a, maybe you could help me here.
Was it Brave New World?
Brave New World, where
Yeah.
Soma, the drug Soma, which actually exists today, is ingested or is taken in pill form, and you get this gloss over your eyes where all of a sudden the pain washes away, and everything is good and happy, and what would the world be if you didn't have the perspective of what adversity felt like. And so, like, some conflict and some negativity is just required for perspective than a world that we're just solely positive. So it's these are deeper philosophical perspectives than I can intellectualize, but it doesn't stop me from researching it, looking into it, and being fascinated by it late at night. And
Totally. Yeah, no, it's I really do spend a lot of time philosophizing about these kinds of things, for sure. Crumb, Mason, thank you guys so much for joining me today and talking. I learned a lot, as always. Mason, very grateful for you and the community, organizing events and being able to kind of help out with so many creators and securing their careers and everything. So greatly appreciative of you and the community. And Crumb, wishing you all the best on your new adventures in the YouTube game, and I hope it all goes well. It's really cool, really nice to meet you as well.
Likewise.
All my pleasure. Thank you.
For those listening, down in the description, we're going to have Crumb's links and Mason's links. I'll have you guys just actually link those to me after the fact, and I'll have them all included down there. But go show them some love. Go follow them on their socials. Go follow Crumb on his YouTube.
Look, thanks for having us. And if you have any interesting merchandise ideas, specifically old school RuneScape, reach out to us. We have a contact page on CreatorCrafted.com. We'd love to hear from you. And thank you once again for having us today, Sater.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. Thanks for listening. Crumb, Mason, it was a pleasure.